Hello. I am Jenna. This is Books Love Jenna. I always forget to introduce myself. That wasn't what I was about to say. I was about to say I am going to do our good news for the month of May. So if you've never seen one of these, or if you need a reminder, my good news videos, I put one out each month, and they are just sharing the quotes that I wrote down from what I read and watched that previous month, what I wrote down in my commonplace books. I keep a series of commonplace books, each one dedicated to a different main theme or topic. So I've got one for nature, got one for love, got one for beauty, got one for other, and I've got one for faith. And each month, as I read, in an effort to slow down my reading and to really consider and process what I'm reading in a more timely manner, I decided this year that whenever I ran into something that I really wanted to remember, I would stop and write it down in the appropriate book. And so that is where you find us today. It is, of course, June, and this is commonplace book material, good news from the books I read for the month, or in the month of May. We're going to start, because it was the first one I pulled off, with nature. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that nature is one of the hot notebooks for me this year. I think that every month I think I've had something that spoke to me from nature, or spoke to me about nature from what I was reading. But this past month in particular, I had quite a lot because I read two books, two authors which wrote about nature so beautifully. So nature is going to be a big one. I don't always read every quote that I've written down for these good news reviews, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm going to start with nature. So here we go. I just had to move over a little bit so there'd be room for the picture of the book over there. All right, so here we go. Finding my way. Oh, this is from The Stubborn Light of Things, which I have sitting right here. This is from The Stubborn Light of Things. Excellent book. Finding my way back to nature took time. Moving a little further out, and eventually to a flat with a little garden, adopting a dog and discovering green places to walk helped. But I also had to change the way I looked at the city. So she's writing about London, and the things that I let myself see. I needed to return my eyes and my other senses to notice how much life there actually was around me, and to help me make imaginative relationships with the places I passed through each day. So that's from The Stubborn Light of Things by Melissa Harrison. Also from The Stubborn Light of Things, so often nature is portrayed to us as either an obstacle or a luxury, when in fact it is essential to our future health and well-being. Something all the most exciting and imaginative planning projects recognize. Fights to keep us and our land green and pleasant are far from regressive. In fact, they are one of the most forward-thinking things any nation can do. Surprise, surprise, also from The Stubborn Light of Things. Twice a year, billions of the world's birds obey the call to migrate, undertaking unimaginably perilous journeys in order to breed, survive the winter, or seek food. Broadly following 8 intercontinental flyways, birds of all species and sizes share the skies as they navigate the globe. These vast biannual shifts are one of the great wonders of the natural world, and one of them is happening right now in the skies over our heads. Also from The Stubborn Light of Things. What an extraordinary time of year this is. Whenever I step outside, it seems something new is happening. Bird choruses breaking out in a froth of fresh green leaves, crocuses opening bright gapes to the blue sky, blackbirds long silent, now in glorious voice. 2 more, both from The Stubborn Light of Things. December afternoons do something to my heart. Perhaps it's the early dusk, consigned with approaching winter, a sense of drawing in, of lighting the lamps early and the fire, The way a tiny village like mine huddles together in its landscape, its encircling fields plowed to brown, its hedgerows bare. And finally, the past is a foreign country. The wildlife is much more abundant there. The next one I'm pulling is beauty. Beauty. How much you want to bet it's from the Stubborn Light of Things? Oh no, it's not. The first one is not from that. It is from This Is Happiness by Niall Williams. For a few weeks then, I stayed at home and he went to work. But there's something undoing about the dying light of mid-afternoon. In that empty old house on Marlborough Road, all that had stitched me into this life came undone, and I couldn't escape the feeling that folded against my back were wings that had failed to open. Also from This Is Happiness by Niall Williams. Sometimes maybe you've had the sense that something has arrived in your life, and what it is you can't tell, but it's as though a gate you haven't checked in. It's as though a gate you haven't checked in a while must have blown open, and without ever going to look, you know it has. You've no proof, nothing you can point to, but you know something has blown open. Oh, and one more. Also from This Is Happiness. We can all pause right here, raise our heads, take a breath, and accept that this is happiness. The next one I'm pulling is Faith. Now, I'm not sure. I don't know if I did anything for it, like if I read anything that I put in Faith in May. No, I didn't. I need to do better. And then let's pull Love or Other. Other is on top, so let's go ahead and do Other. I usually end on Other, but Other is on top. Yeah, there's quite a few. Actually, let's just look and see which one has... Yeah, we'll do Other. All right, here we go. This one is from The Wedding People by Alison Esbach. She could not go to work and stand at the office printer and hold her face in a steady expression of interest while her colleague talked at length about the surprising importance of cheese in medieval theology. I love that. I don't know why. Also from The Wedding People, I just mean a story can be beautiful, not because of the way that it ends, but because of the way it is written. Also from The Wedding People, she always loved circular endings in literature, even if they were completely unrealistic. Probably why she was the only one in her Victorian literature class who actually liked the ending in Jane Eyre. She liked the endings of all marriage plots. The books were orderly and deliberate. They succeeded on their own terms. The endings always reflected the beginnings. The authors had powerful control of the narrators. The deaths were put into a kind of cosmic order that made everybody feel better about being alive, because they happened off stage, in the south of Italy, or at the seaside, where characters were given the grace and dignity to die on beds more beautiful than their own. From Transformation by Mary Shelley. I have heard it said that any strange, supernatural, and necromantic adventure that has occurred to a human being, that being, however desirous he may be to conceal the same, feels at certain periods torn up, as it were, by an intellectual earthquake and is forced to bear the inner depths of his spirit to another. Transformation. Also from Transformation by Mary Shelley. I love this sentence. I want to work it into daily conversation. Here it goes. There was a wild work in Paris then. I don't know. What's a wild work? I love it. I love it. I think it was the revolution, but still, there was a wild work. Also from Transformation by Mary Shelley. O expectation, what a frightful thing art thou, when kindled more by fear than hope. From The Love Haters by Catherine Center. The funny thing about the internet is that it's basically a collective hallucination. Welcome to my Welcome to my hallucination. Is it your hallucination too? If you're here, yes. The Love Haters by Catherine Center. Braced against a roof railing at a 45-degree angle on a sinking houseboat with no remaining connection to civilization and only a bandaged, bleeding dog and his pet toad for company, I felt maybe, for the first time in my life, true despair. Let's see. Also, no, this one is from This Is Happiness by Niall Williams. At the time you are living it, you can sometimes think your life is nothing much. It's ordinary and everyday and should be, and could be in this way or that better. It is without the perspective by which any meaning can be derived, because it's too sensual and urgent and immediate, which is the way life is to be lived. We're all the time. Hello, little one. Did you pull your box of toys out? Okay. 1, 2, 3. At the time you're living it, you can sometimes think your life is nothing much. It's ordinary and everyday and should be and could be in this way or that better. It is without the perspective by which any meaning can be derived, because it's too sensual and urgent and immediate, which is the way life is to be lived. We're all the time, striving, and though that means there's a more or less constant supply of failure, it's not such a terrible thing if you think that we keep on trying. There's something to consider in that. Story was the stuff of life, and to realize you were inside one allowed you to sometimes surrender to the plot, to bear a little easier the griefs and sufferings, and to enjoy more fully the tourists that come along the way. From This Is Happiness. As I've said, I am keenly aware I am dealing in antiquities. When you are born in a century and find yourself walking around in another, there's a certain infirmity to your footing. May we all be so lucky to live long enough to see our time turn to fable. As someone who was born in the previous century, who teaches and deals with children who are born in this century, yeah, my time is fable, for sure. I'm not that old, and my time is already fable. The truth turns into a story when it grows old. We all become stories in the end. So, though the narrative was flawed, the sense was of a life so lived, it was epic. Do I exaggerate? Of course I do. The truth doesn't care. There's the thing here's the thing life teaches you. Sometimes the truth can only be reached by exaggeration. Amen to that. You live long enough, you understand prayers can be answered on a higher frequency than the one you were listening for. We all have to find a story to live by and live inside, or we couldn't endure the certainty of suffering. And finally, from the other pile here, he himself had the wisdom to know that the thing that came between intention and its execution was life, and that in a place half a century behind the world, another 10 minutes would be no catastrophe. And this month, I guess, we'll end on love. Here we go. This is from The Wedding People by Alison Esbach. Love was an invisible wire connecting them always. Whoa. Let's do that again. Love was an invisible wire connecting them always. From Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. You unmake the world and you build a new one. You do anything to give them what they need. From The Love Haters by Catherine Center. You are a TV jingle that you never wanted to learn but can't erase. You are a puzzle that can't be solved, or a question that can't be answered, or a dream you wake up from that feels like it really happened but it didn't happen, and it can't happen because that's not how dreams work. From This Is Happiness by Niall Williams. The plots of cheap romantic novels were known even by those who never read them, and a serenade was venerable enough to have become cliché before it was thrown in the dustbin of the world. Giving it everything grew him 2 inches. They were 2 inches he was unaware he had, but we all have them, folded up on themselves, inside the purse of the heart. From This Is Happiness by Niall Williams. I loved you once is among the saddest lines in humanity. And finally, to end us today, from This Is Happiness by Niall Williams. What happened? Oh, okay, so a little context for this. In This Is Happiness, which there will be a dedicated video about very soon, but in This Is Happiness, one of the main characters, his name is Christy, one of the main characters, has come to a town to kind of try to return to his past. He has regrets, and he's going around the world trying to right them in some way, if he can. And one of his biggest regrets is having left a woman at the altar. And she goes on and she has a life, right? But he does find her, and he wants to fix it in some way. Yes, he wants to fix his own heart, but more so he wants to fix any damage he may have done by leaving her at the altar, may have done that still remains unhealed. He wants to do something to heal it. And there's a younger boy, I don't know, 17, 18, who Christy's family is staying with. And so that boy asks, he's trying to figure out Christy's backstory. And so he asks about the wedding. He asks about why Christy left. And this is the brief quote that I've picked from that conversation to kind of encapsulate an entire storyline that's through the whole book. So the boy says, "What happened?" And Christy says, "I was afraid of what I felt. I thought that it would swallow me up, and I thought that it would swallow me up. It already had. I only wanted to live for her." And that is the end of our good things from the month of May. The quotes that I pulled from the things that I read. And yeah, let's go read.